There was no path, only the steep, rocky climb up the desert ridge. Hugh Tallant pulled himself up through crumbling rock and dry sage roots until he reached the final pinnacle. From there, he could see the small town of Oasis, a cluster of shacks, palms, and a half-finished highway ending in the dust. But Tallant's field glasses were fixed beyond the town, on the dry lake where uniformed men tested gliders. He watched carefully, taking detailed notes in his small black notebook. Something moved at the edge of his vision, a thin brown shape too large for a rabbit and too small for a man. He dismissed it as fatigue, though it kept flitting across his sight. When he investigated, he found only the half-eaten carcass of a bird. As he descended the slope, a man in a red and black lumber jacket called out cheerfully, "Tallant!" It was Morgan, an old acquaintance from China, who hinted at knowing compromising secrets from Tallant's past. Morgan joked about Tallant spying on the Army glider school and hinted that the prospector getup was just a disguise. He threatened to talk to the soldiers unless Tallant paid him off. Tallant kept his composure and invited Morgan to visit him the next morning at his tent near the oasis, promising rum and a friendly chat. That night, Tallant decided to be seen in public. He went to the Desert Sports Spot Bar, where a few locals and army men sat drinking. When he mentioned he was living at the old Carker place, the bar grew quiet. The bartender hesitated, and an old drunk named Jake looked at him with pity. Jake asked if Tallant planned to live in the abandoned adobe. When Tallant said no, Jake muttered nervously, "Then you'll be all right. But don't go poking around there. They bite." After Jake left, the bartender explained that the old man had strange fears about the adobe. Another man, young and bearded, sat beside Tallant and told him a local legend. He said that in every desert, there's always something moving just out of sight, something thin, brown, and dry. People called them the Watchers. He linked this to the story of the Carkers, a family who once lived near the oasis. The young man described the Carkers as ogres, like the old cannibal families from history, the Sawney Beans of Scotland, the Benders of Kansas, people who killed travelers for profit, and then for pleasure. The Carkers, he said, preyed on travelers who stopped at their oasis, and the army had wiped them out, twice, because even after the first massacre, people kept disappearing. Some said the Carkers never really died. Maybe they'd learned something from the Indians about preservation or immortality, and whatever they worshipped in the desert had listened. Tallant laughed off the tale, but the bartender added another story. During the last cold winter, something small and naked had crept into the bar for warmth. They'd heard a cracking sound near the stove and found Jake's little dog dead, the bones gnawed and bloodstains left on the floor. Whatever it was, it had escaped before anyone saw it clearly. Tallant brushed it all aside, amused. He thought the Carker legend would actually serve him well. No one would go near that cursed adobe. It would be the perfect place to hide what he was about to do. That night, he dreamed of power, ruling a corporate empire after the war, commanding others like slaves. But in the dream, the bearded man from the bar appeared, warning him that a darker, older evil existed in mankind, one that would swallow his ambition whole. Behind the man, something lean and brown stirred in the shadows. The next morning, Tallant woke cheerful. The day was warm and calm, the desert sun sharp and golden. He worked bare-chested, clearing brush for his shack, until Morgan arrived, sweating and red-faced. Tallant greeted him pleasantly and suggested they talk in the shade of the old adobe. Once inside, he swung his machete and split Morgan's face in two. It was easy. No one would miss Morgan for months, and no one would search in the forbidden adobe. The desert would keep its secret. He dragged the body inside, the blood warm on his skin, and began digging a grave in the packed earth floor. Then something caught his eye again, a flicker in the corner, something moving. He looked around. The adobe's interior was crude and ancient. Rough furniture, ashes in the fireplace, a hollow stone stained dark, and a small figure made of clay and sticks, half man, half lizard. In the dim corner he saw something that froze him, then made him laugh aloud. It was a mummified body, small and perfectly preserved, the skin brown and tight over bone. A child, perhaps 10 years old. The mouth was drawn back, exposing long white teeth. It was the perfect desert mummy, perhaps worth money to an anthropologist. Then he noticed the faint rise and fall of its chest. The thing was alive. Tallant didn't stop to think. He grabbed his machete and ran for the door, but froze again. Across the desert, another one was coming toward the adobe, a female. The machete slipped, clanging against the wall. Behind him came a dry, shuffling sound as the sleeper awoke. He turned. The small, lean creature leapt at him. He dodged, raised his weapon, and waited for the next charge. It sprang again. He stepped back, tripped over Morgan's corpse, and fell. Before he could rise, the thing was on him, its sharp teeth sinking into his hand. With desperate strength, Tallant swung the machete, slicing its head clean off. The small body dropped, lifeless, yet its teeth still clung to his hand. Pain flared through his arm like fire, sharper than any normal wound, as if poisoned. He tried to pry the jaws open, but they wouldn't release. He braced the head between his knees and pulled. The flesh of his hand tore, blood dripping thick and dusty on the floor. Still, the bite held fast. He tore at it with his own teeth, breaking away dry flesh that crumbled into powder. But the white teeth were locked deep in his palm. The pain grew unbearable. He staggered to his feet, knowing what he had to do. Raising the machete again, he struck once more. His severed hand fell to the earthen floor, still clenched in the small brown jaws. Blood poured from his wrist into the hollow stone before the clay idol. Tallant slumped against the wall, vision dimming. In the doorway stood the female, thin, brown, and still as the desert. The sun blazed behind her. She waited silently, watching as his blood filled the stone bowl before the little god.